Yep, I'm Lieutenant David Davis. That's D-A-V-I-D, D-A-V-I-S, and I work for the Raleigh Police Department's Public Affairs Office.
I guess tell us how preparations are going right now. This is a back-to-back type of
Yeah, this is back-to-back weekends. Obviously, we are putting a lot of preparations in place, working with our partners here at the city, just making sure that we're prepared and that our officers have what they need to be able to serve the community members throughout the weekend, making sure they have extra flares, make sure we have some extra staffing available. Again, they might open up that emergency operations center, which will help us kind of coordinate with other departments, making sure we get the cleanup underway so we can kind of get everything back in order for Monday and getting everybody back to work.
Could you recap, I guess, like the type of response last weekend in terms of like call volumes or like how, like what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The governor issuing that state of emergency, just like he has for this weekend, I think that was a big help for us. That's a strong message that we can actually support from the Raleigh Police Department side of things too. Just making sure that people are not on the roadway, only travel if absolutely necessary. I think that helped us out quite a bit last weekend. We didn't have any major vehicle accidents. We're able to get the roads cleared up pretty quickly, for Monday morning. Again, we're trying to hope for that same thing for this weekend as well, just trying to keep people off the roadway so our officers can move about the city safely when they have to respond to emergency situations, but also for that cleanup for the transportation division, making sure that we can get our roads back and cleared off enough for our schools to open back up on Monday, as well as people getting back to work.
Lastly, I guess going back to like how this is a back-to-back type of event, how much more prepared or confident do you guys feel this was just last week?
Yeah, so we look at the ice storm. Personally, I was probably a little bit more concerned about that. With losing power, especially the folks in Raleigh, that might have some mobility issues. Losing power for any sort of amount of time, that could really have an impact on your health. So looking at this one, this is going to be a little different, even though we still have a lot of the concerns that we could lose some power. But with the snow compared to the ice, I think my concern is that people are going to look outside instead of seeing the ice. They're going to see snow. Snow is going to be a little more prettier to look at. Families, kids, they're going to want to get out and try to get into the snow a little bit more than the ice. So just trying to make sure that people have that plan in place if they do try to get out of their houses. Try to find that safe place to sled in your neighborhood. But again, let's just try to avoid driving around and getting in the way and interfering with law enforcement and fire and people just trying to do what they can to serve the community.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the Emergency Operations Center?
Yeah, so the Emergency Operations Center, that brings in all the departments in the city. That allows them to communicate with each other. If we have like power goes out, a tree goes down, traffic lights go out, we can kind of communicate those things, especially if you have a slick spot, trying to get DOT out there to try to address those areas. So that way it creates a safer environment for everybody.
And you talked about this a little bit, but with snow and ice, two different animals, is there anything you guys are doing differently this weekend or lessons learned from last weekend?
No, I think just the preparation. I know the preparation for the ice storm, just making sure the transportation was out there, treating the roadway. I think this time with it being the snow, hopefully the getting out there and clearing off the roads will be a little bit quicker, right? Since we're not dealing with ice, hopefully that'll kind of get us back on our feet and get things opened back up. I think that would be the biggest win for us for this weekend.
And anything else you want them to know, anyone who's watching?
Yeah, I think from a community care standpoint, we definitely want to make sure that, the people that, again, with the mobility issues, get to know your neighbors, right? Let's look out for one another. Let's get in touch with each other. Let's exchange phone numbers. Let's try to, establish those relationships. Myself, I've got a text thread with all of my neighbors on my cul-de-sac. I would strongly suggest that for our community members as well, just so that we can look out for one another. That's what makes Raleigh one of the greatest places to live.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, just to start with saying and spelling.
Yep.
First.
Lowell, Lowell, Smith, Smith, and I'm Assistant Fire Chief, Operations, Raleigh Fire Department.
How are you guys feeling going into this weekend in terms of preparedness, coming back also, especially from last weekend?
Right. Well, I guess last weekend was a dress rehearsal for this weekend, so same prep again. We've got our equipment inspected and staged. We're ready to, adjust our deployment model if we need to. We're partnering with all of our other city agencies and city departments, to maintain that unified response.
And how was the response last weekend in terms of like call volume or the types of calls that you guys responded
Right.
to?
So actually, it's very, very light. We come out very lucky. We thank the public for that, staying off the roads, and that's the same message again this time. if you don't have to get out, please avoid all unnecessary travel. The more people that's on the road, the more likelihood of accidents, the more likelihood that we're going to have to get out and respond as well.
You mentioned roads, but are there any other type of like common scenarios that you guys kind of brace for when winter weather happens here?
Absolutely, yeah. So we know it's going to be freezing. So it's always a challenge, operating public safety wise in the cold weather, just like it is for anybody else to be out in it. So we're dealing with the cold weather, the freezing water, everything like that. The biggest thing too that we want to make sure we reiterate is stay off of frozen lakes and ponds. That's a different animal that we're seeing now that we're not normally accustomed to seeing. So it's not safe. It may be a ½ inch to an inch of ice that looks safe, but you take 3 steps out there, the 4th step you're going to be under the water. And so on that aspect of it, if you have that happen, call 911 immediately. Don't try to effect the rescue yourself. The sooner you can get the professionals en route, the better off that we're going to be, and maybe effect the rescue.
Are there any fire safety tips, or I guess if a lot of people decide to use generators, like are there safety tips for that?
Right. So obviously, loss of power is on everybody's mind, especially coming out of last weekend. If you use generators, we recommend them be 20 foot away from your house with the exhaust blowing the opposite way. Make sure that it's plugged in properly. Never, ever, ever, never use charcoal grills or anything like that inside to heat your home. It puts off carbon monoxide and it's deadly within minutes. If you're using space heaters, make sure that they're plugged in directly into the generator or into the wall outlet itself and not into an extension cord like that. Maintain a proper distance of at least 6 to 10 feet away from combustibles or anything like that. And if you leave, cut everything off.
What about kerosene heaters?
Kerosene heaters are popular. They're deemed to be safe, but with same thing with kerosene as within space heaters. Keep them away from combustibles. Don't leave them on when you're out. Just cut them off when you leave.
What's the biggest call that you guys get during ice or snowstorms?
I would probably say wrecks and falls. People getting out, falling on the ice, falling in the snow or whatever, sledding accidents. We urge parents to keep an eye on your kids, make sure that they're being as safe as possible, yet having a good time, right? So, but motor vehicle accidents and falls would be really common with this type of weather event. And then unfortunately we do see an uptick in home structure fires, residential structure fires. So.
Anything different this past storm? Any unusual calls that you're?
No, like I say, the call volume was relatively light. We're positioned now to have the same response as we did last weekend. We've got more of our all-terrain vehicles out and ready to respond. We've adjusted our staffing model, increased staffing and everything. So, Raleigh Fire Department is ready to respond whatever the weather is. So.
Any final plea to citizens out there for this upcoming storm?
Yeah, if you don't need to be on the roads, please don't. We do urge you to avoid any unnecessary travel, and then again keep your kids and your pets away from any frozen bodies of water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, Steve Halsey, Halsey, and I'm with the Department of Transportation with the City of Raleigh, and I'm the Assistant Director.
So how are preparations going with the roads right now? How are they right now?
So we were able to get out yesterday and do our pre-treatment with brine, second time in a week, so we're getting pretty good at it. But we were able to treat everything we anticipated yesterday and giving the crews a little bit of a rest today in anticipation of our day and night shift starting at 7 o'clock tonight.
How did last weekend go with the roads?
So ice last week obviously was the biggest challenge along with the cold temperatures. I think we still have some roads and shady spots where maybe the ice hasn't fully melted away from the streets, so that can present a challenge if snow falls on top. But looking forward to this coming weekend with the forecast of snow falling. We anticipate being able to hopefully push the snow off the road and then treat the roads with salt, so a little bit different type of accumulation than dealing with ice like we did last weekend.
How much brine have you guys used in the city of Raleigh limits within the past 2 weeks?
So it's 57,000 gallons per event, and we treat approximately 750 miles of streets.
That's a lot.
It is. It takes about 10 hours with our 12 trucks, but we've got it down to where everybody knows what their responsibility is, and it's kind of become a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely. Kind of explain explain a little bit more about those challenges of having these back-to-back events?
Obviously, staff is the first thing that comes to mind. If you go back 3 weeks, we had that threat of some wintry weather, so we had staff working that week. Coming into this weekend, that's our biggest priority, is making sure staff is in good spirits and rested and the best they can be going into potentially another long stretch of days.
Right. Why is my neighborhood not plowed?
Yeah, so obviously traffic volumes and creating connectivity to those interstates are key. So NCDOT has their priorities, which start with the interstates, and we kind of pick up on those next level of north-south and east-west connectors, again, based on traffic volumes. And our priority is to get those routes clear first before we move down to the next sets of priorities, and neighborhood streets would fall down to what we call a priority 4, which would be several days into an event. And typically, Mother Nature kicks in, and we aren't required to go down those streets.
Even though this is a type of different precipitation, like snowfall compared to ice last weekend, does it change any way like people should approach or like prepare for safetyness this weekend?
I would call it the same type of preparation. Those that can stay home, hopefully they will stay home, and give the first responders, emergency services, the local utility companies, and of course the road crews the ability to work and work safely without traffic out on the roads. And again, the snow versus ice conversation, I would treat it the same as far as the public is concerned, because either way you can anticipate very slick conditions with the cold temperatures. And moving on into the beginning of next week, even after the snow's gone, I know the forecast is for low temperatures, so this stuff probably will hang around for a while. And again, some of those secondary roads are going to continue to remain challenging even into next week.
Well, you guys are prepping the roads today, but after the snow falls, what does that process look like for you guys?
So as the snow's falling, we're looking for accumulating snow, and once we get to the point where we can actually use our plows on our equipment, the priority is to push the snow off of the roads and then treat with salt to try and keep the ice from building up on the roads, because again, with traffic, the snow can melt, turn into ice, and that becomes a whole nother problem. So the priority is to get the snow off, treat with salt, get that priority clear, and then move on to the next set of priorities.
Can you talk a little bit about sidewalks? Because I know that's a big concern too.
It is. We have staff dedicated to working on some of the priority sidewalks in the downtown area within our municipal service district. Outside of that, obviously most of our staff is dedicated to clearing the roads, so that's going to be our priority.
And what is your biggest message or urgency to drivers, people who just want to go out and play in the snow this weekend for safety?
I would keep trips to a minimum if possible, keep it to emergency type trips, and again, give all the people that have to be out working the ability to do that safely. Have patience. Again, the cold temperatures are going to be very challenging for us to be able to get the roads clear in what some may see as a timely manner, but certainly when you're dealing with the number of roads that we have in Raleigh and the amount of traffic we have in Raleigh, our resources only go so far. We're going to do the best we can with those resources, but it's just a matter of having that patience and understanding that the cold temperatures present a whole other challenge.
Sometimes there's confusion with homeowners, who's taking care of my road, county, city, HOAs.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, those that live in the Raleigh city limits, the majority of your main thoroughfares are NCDOT roads, and when you start moving down into the secondary roads, especially those with curb and gutter, those are usually city of Raleigh roads. But again, when it comes to responding to snow and ice, we work hand in hand with DOT to make sure that we're creating that connectivity regardless of who may be the underlying owner of that street.
Some of the private community, anything with
Yeah, private communities would be the responsibility of whatever homeowners association or commercial responsibility through the property management companies.
And if a homeowner, if someone's street hasn't been touched, is there someone they can reach out to? Is there a number? Is there a website to check to see if they're coming their way?
Yeah, certainly. I think that if there is an emergency, we can respond, and they can contact the city through the normal channels. But again, patience is going to be the key. Not every road is going to be clear, and not every road is probably going to be clear within what the public might perceive as a timely manner.
Anything else we missed?
I think y'all got it.